Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Garage Time. In this week, I'm going to prove to you that there's no such thing as a simple project when working on old cars like this Porsche 911 behind me. This is my 3.2 engine, and today's project is to remove the exhaust all the way up to the heads, which is a serious risk of damaging the engine. So the exhaust is 40 years old probably, and it's never been off, and it's rusted onto the heads, and if you don't do it right, you can strip out the heads or break off the studs and really cause a lot of damage to the engine. So there's no such thing as an easy project. I'm going to show you all the steps and all the hoops I had to jump through to get that done.
Garage Time.
If you're a regular viewer to Garage Time, you know I post weekly videos about any progress I make on my cars. This was a little bit of a curveball for me. I wasn't planning on working on this engine until I got that engine fully ready to go in the car. But I was thrown a little bit of a curveball because I found a guy who wants to trade the stock exhaust off this engine for an aftermarket stainless exhaust off his engine. So there was a sense of urgency. I needed to get the engine up off the ground, off the pallet, and remove the stock exhaust within about a week. This engine's not quite ready to come off the stand. We're still sorting out some issues with the computer and the fuel injection. So I ended up building another engine test stand over here for this engine, which is mine. I had to get it up off the pallet so we can remove the exhaust. Plus, this one is a different clutch package. This is for the G50. So this is a new product for me. It's not obviously plated. And there's those studs. We got to take it off. Taking the heat exchangers off right at the heads. And then there's a barrel nut right there. And to get access to that, there's little holes here in the heat exchanger that go right through. Penetrating oil. And now we wait. Just let that penetrating oil soak in a little bit. Okay, starting with the easy stuff. It's very oily down here. Go. This is at the front of the engine or towards the front of the car, and these bolts that attach the crossover pipe are very rusted. So this is going to take a little bit of heat, and these might have to be cut off, I'm not sure. Okay, this piece is now broken free. Basically just cut the nuts off and just pushed it through. Okay, of course I've never removed an exhaust off one of these engines before. So I read, like you guys would, I just read some information on Google, and the recommendation was to use like a propane torch, or this is a MAP torch. And I tried with the nozzle that's on here, and it really would not get anything hot enough to really cause it to expand and break free. You need to get the nuts like cherry red, and this wouldn't even come close. And come to find out, this is what it says MAP gas on here. It's really a joke because it's a blend of MAP and Pro, which is like propylene or something like that. It's really not much more than propane. So the temperature of this is pretty weak. So I ended up having to not only build an engine stand this week, but also go shopping for an oxy-acetylene torch. It's an old one, but it does have new hoses, and I did double check everything for leaks. This is the torch I'm using right now, and you know, I'm just learning how to use it. Okay, these are the nuts from the exhaust, the heater flanges, and these are obviously, you know, rusty as you can tell, but everything came off cleanly except for one. One of the nuts did not come off the stud. Instead, the stud unthreaded from the head. So I'm going to take the nut off the stud here. I could just replace the stud, but I thought it would be better to show you guys what it's like on the bench to heat up the nut because it was so hard to film under the engine. Okay, first thing you want to do is double nut the side that goes in the head. That way there you can, one, hold it in the vise, and two, you know, put a wrench on it so you can undo it. So you just squeeze these two wrenches together. You don't want to go super tight because you'll stretch the stud, but hopefully it'll line up to the point where you can put it in a vise. That's probably good enough. This is a little bit more favorable than it is in the engine because in the engine it's attached to an aluminum head which sucks away the heat. Plus the heat exchangers have really thick flanges on them. So that absorbs a lot of heat. In this case, it's mostly hanging out in midair. So it's going to take a lot less energy to create a red hot nut there. But I'm gonna show you the propane and just show you what the struggles I had with it. Now, I assume there's different nozzles available for these things. This is the benzomatic one, and there are some air holes so oxygen gets in this, but you don't get a lot of flow out of it, and there's no real defined cone. But this will take minutes and not actually get cherry red. Let me know if you have a better idea of the nozzle. Maybe someone else could use a more concentrated nozzle, but like I said, this is really not a good solution. We're up to about a minute and it's nowhere near red hot. So one of the ways this works is you want to shock it with a lot of heat. You want to get it hot quick so the nut expands and the bolt does not. So the idea is you're opening it up like a hoop. So this is not working. This is the oxygen tank and I have it set to, this is about 20, but it drops down to like 15 when you're actually using it. Kind of like my spray gun, you like to set the pressures when the actual gas is flowing. So call this 15. And then here on the oxy-acetylene, it's showing like 6.5, but it's actually 5 when it's running. So these are pretty conservative settings for something that is not cutting or actually welding. We're just heating at this point. This is a Victor torch and it's using the number 0 size tip. And that's what I'm using for heating. It's a very concentrated flame. So you just crack open the oxy-acetylene. Crank it up. So it kind of does that sound. And then just add a little bit of oxygen. And I am wearing glasses. It's kind of what I'm after. And then we just, heat this up, have your wrench ready. Like I said, this is a pretty mild amount of heat. So see how it's already getting red? Like immediately it's getting red. Turn off the oxygen, turn off the gas. And what I did in the car is I'd put the wrench on it and I would work it up and down. Kind of up and down. And you get that squeakiness to it. You just keep working it up and down, kind of like a tap and die. And it really didn't take much torque at all to break that free. And that's it. So hopefully that's easier for you guys to see than working under the engine, but it is certainly doable. I'm really excited about this tool. Yeah, the wrench gets hot, so be careful what you're touching. This is really a quick way to heat something up. Done. Okay, I've just shut the valves off on the tank. I like to relieve the pressure, or at least reduce the setting here on the regulators so it's kind of loosey-goosey like that. And then open up the valves on the torch just to bleed any of the fuel out of the lines. You hear the stuff coming out. Make sure the gauges here are back to 0 and good for next time. See it dropping. So there you go, the job is complete. Like I said, it required me to build an engine stand, get the engine up off the ground, buy a new piece of equipment, the oxy-acetylene torch. That's something I've been wanting for a while, so I don't regret any of it. And the new exhaust system, I'm pretty excited about it. I don't have it here yet. It's a stainless exhaust with heat exchanger headers. It's by GHL, I think, or GNL, I can't remember, GHL. But it's a high quality stainless exhaust system with headers, with heat exchangers, and it does have a 2-in, 1-out muffler, and might be doing some modifications to the muffler, or at least the tips, so it looks better on the car. But that's kind of what's coming. It's going to give better performance, no doubt about it. And maybe it wasn't my first choice of exhaust, but given that it was essentially free, I couldn't pass up a good deal. So stay tuned for the installation of that exhaust. and also the startup of my motor, which is the second one here on the engine stand. So thanks again for watching, and as always, tune in next week. Cheers.